Welcome back to the world of Arlansei, where we're building up a 10,000 block, vibrant and fantastical world. Last video we worked on the prismatic cliffs, which is quite the project, but as you can see, it's still pretty barren. So in this video, we're going to create 2 secret lagoons to help build up the cliffs and meet our main character for this area's story. First, we're going to build a sort of lush paradise lagoon in this area here. This will help me figure out how I want to add in plant life in the rest of the cliffs, so I'm using it kind of like a little warm-up. Then we're going to create a hideout for our protagonists / antagonist. More details to come. The whole cave entrance is flooded with water that runs from the waterfall, so you either have to bring a boat up from the ocean, whose water level is about 10 blocks below, or you have to swim. So I got a few cool ideas in the comments of my last video, and I'd like to try them out. First, shout out to Settluna7692 for reminding me that I wanted to use glowberries. And second, an idea from the Froggy100 to make the waterfalls feel more flowy and realistic was to add a space behind them or below them, symbolizing erosion. And I had 2 thoughts. First, that this would add a lot of depth, so we're going to try kind of a mini version of that out. And because the single block depth of the waterfalls is just a little sad. But so far, I think it looks like it's helping. And then my second thought was secret waterfall entrance, woohoo! So we'll do that for our second lagoon, because it's a classic. What do we think? I think yes, it's a little subtle, but definitely better than before. The entrance for this lagoon is going to be through overgrown cave. This one you could probably stumble upon, and if you were brave enough to venture through the dark cave, then you'd find a hidden paradise. I'd like to keep most of the fancy vegetation for inside of the lagoon. I also don't want the cave to be too small and claustrophobic because I'd like there to be space for glowberries to hang down. I think this lagoon needs to feel a little bit more closed off. It feels very open and unsecrety. So I'm trying to add in more of an overhang using the grasses with some rock support, which also helps make the lagoon walls a little bit more interesting. I want to add in a few mini arches, which carries through from our arch theme in the cliffs, and to create some shadows and make the whole thing feel a little bit more separated. Plus, I just love arches so much. So we'll bring in the top edges a little bit more and connect some of the places where the rock juts out like I've done, and then we'll maybe add in a long arch spanning the whole lagoon. If I build it up and across here and connect it all up, you can tell it's making a huge difference already. You can also see that I have added mossy clumps along the rock walls. Alright, back to the time lapse. You can see what a huge difference these 2 simple arches made. If I just add in a few more bits here and there using the same moss and grass combination as elsewhere in the cliffs, I think it'll blend together nicely and make a cool effect. I'm building another torch flower. This one has inverted colors and then a few other large plants. And I wanted to add a few of the cyan bushes to tie in this area with everywhere else. I thought the glowberries needed a little more oomph for the space, so I also added in some leaf vines. Plus, I like bringing in leaves because they're pretty. All right, here's what we have so far. Not bad, but I think if I worked with it a little bit more, it could feel a lot more complete. I think some more greenery along the walls and a little bit more color would be good. Ta-da! We have hanging vines, large strange plants, some mossy overgrowth, a cozy, intriguing entrance, and a decently populated area. I added the second smaller torch flower, which I think is a really nice touch, and I added regular Minecraft torch flowers and berry bushes for some more pops of color. I also changed the green plants a bit. I should have done a more realistic pattern, but I didn't think about that till now. I added in even more greenery to the walls. First, I just added in the moss blocks, but I found that the carpets, mossy cobblestone, and diorite really helped bring things in together without it just being a random cube of green. Oh, you know what would be good? A little rock here, like a little mossy boulder to help break up the shoreline. I added a few things underwater as well, some rocks and plants. They're pretty subtle, but they're there. So if I just connect this up and add some slabs, which always makes such a huge difference, that's a huge building tip of mine that I've gotten. Slabs make a big difference. All right, good, but I don't want it to be too pointy. We're going for soft, overgrown feelings. And I bet if I added a moss carpet or two, beautiful and integrated. Cute. And I love the spore blossom particles. And I added in 2 little leaf bushes, which I feel like make it a little bit more real. I was getting a little caught up on all of the solid concrete and terracotta. And then I've been debating, but I think I'm going to put in a little picnic spot for someone who discovered this area. I didn't want it to be too cheesy, but I think I'll just go for it anyway. I think adding it will bring in a little bit more of a story. Someone who lives in the cliffs has discovered this small paradise and they haven't told anyone. But they do keep noticing little things that indicate someone else has been here. Eventually, when the two meet, I think they would have a picnic and talk about life. I don't know. And we need a picnic basket. Good. Pretty standard, but good. And a little boat that they arrived in. Okay, getting sidetracked again. I'm adding a few little rocks along the shore. That looks better. On the opposite side of the lagoon from the picnic, I've added this little dropper here to pretend to be a crack in the rock for the two visitors to leave notes for each other. I've just written this so far, a little bit of back and forth, and as time goes on, our two characters will get to know each other more, and that will lead to the picnic that's already set out. We won't worry about the chronological order for now. I guess, though, if it's just a crack in the rock, we don't need a button to spit it out. We can just leave the dropper as is. Yeah, that makes more sense. And there we have our first finished lagoon. A little chaotic, but good nonetheless. I've got my funky lily pads, a lot of overflowing greenery, and some fun, colorful, larger-than-life plants. I love it. I'm glad we spent a little bit of extra time fine-tuning things. I definitely think that made a huge difference. And there it is, tucked away in the landscape. Maybe not super secret, but still pretty hidden. This is our spot for the second lagoon. I'm going to hide the entrance behind a waterfall, so let's get building and dive into the story some more. We're going to have 3 main stories running through Arlansei. The first story, which is the one I'm currently calling Land. I know, very creative, but it helps me get things straight. It's time to meet one of our main characters for the Land story. In the tropical prismatic cliffs, a boy grew up, loved by his parents, exploring when he wasn't in, I'm going to call it lessons because calling it school sounds too mundane. But what he loved most of all was learning about the geology of his home. Now, hopefully you'll agree with him that these cliffs are striking. They've got white shot through with vibrant blues, pinks, oranges, and gold. And it is in this gold where our hero starts to warp. The inhabitants of the cliffs hardly mind their gold. Their economy is based on trading more practical things, and they only used the gold in special cases of ornamentation. But from across the sea came the mainlanders, and they saw the beautiful cliffs and the gold, and they wanted to take some home with them. So they set up a small mine and began chipping away at the gold in the cliff face, scarring the land. Our character, whose name is Declan, felt outraged at this. So he and another member of the community who knew a lot about magical plants in the area set up a laboratory in a hidden cave lagoon and began experimenting with plants and rocks using what he'd learned in his lessons. And he found a way to poison the gold. Now, don't ask me how you poison gold. Just say suspension of disbelief with me as I build in a fantasy land whose rules don't match our own. Back to the story. After poisoning the gold, Declan didn't know how to undo the action, and unfortunately for everyone involved, the poison started to spread. And that is the beginning of our story. So I've set up a little entry area. There's a bit of moss and 2 little offshoots. I also added in these openings to the sky because I thought it would make it feel a little bit more lagoon-esque and less of a little sea cave. Though maybe I should bring up their connection point a little bit more. Yeah, I think that's better. I added some diorite walls to create a little more of a pointy look. Not necessarily stalagmites and stalactites, but just pointy rock. And again, I feel like it's one of those subtle details that really help create a full finished product. Speaking of, we'll also add in some glowberries and a few little torch flowers for color. I guess these cliffs are just the home of the torch flower. Back in this area is where we're going to have the hideout. You can get a vague hint of the architecture style for our cliff dwellers, but when I say vague, I do mean vague. Over here, though, is actually where you enter, and now we set up a gold poisoning lab. Never thought I'd be doing that. You're sailing along, and you pass this waterfall, and if you know where to look, you might notice that there's an opening. I kind of disguised it by adding a few other air pockets in the waterfall. But you enter into this cozy lagoon cave area, and back by the workshop, you can get a little peek inside, though it's decently well hidden. But you can't get in there. Once you go around the side, you can find the entrance. And this is the workshop. There is some evidence of their schemes laying around. I used the invisible item frame command, which I will put in the description because I think it's the best thing ever, and I thought you could only do it with mods. Or, I don't know, data packs. I don't know much about that stuff. Anyway, I thought about adding in some more decor, like a rug, but then I thought, would these two characters who are focused on saving their home and harming the invaders take time to buy a rug and bring it all the way down here to their hidden workshop? Probably not. I don't think these two characters have much for dramatic flair. They want a functional space, not cozy and inviting. I've got these 2 books to add into the bookshelves, Materials and Ideas, and a Record of Experiments. Now, I want to add an even more secret-y lab. This area is a little too easy to stumble in on, so their main lab is going to be even more hidden. I'm putting a button for secret door here, and then I'm going to blend it in a little bit better. There we go. And here's our little extra lab space. And now I get to fiddle around with redstone and try to get this door to work. I think it needs to be set 1 more block back. I'm changing this button to a lever so that the door stays closed because the button is not working. And only half of it works. Let's fix the connection problem and test it out again. Ooh, I like it. It's not just a flat door, but it's got layers. That was unintentional. I guess the redstone just connected to the first sticky piston I placed down. Anyway, it turned out way better than I planned. Now I just want to smooth out the rocks a little bit more and hide the lever. If there's going to be a stone patch here, I should spread stone out a couple other places too. And I think some slabs would add a nice finishing touch for the walls and ceilings. This lever still isn't hidden well. What if we put a root in front of it to tie it to the other corner? No, that doesn't hide it enough. I guess we'll go back to our good old glowberries. Oh, and you know what? If I put some glowberries in front of this window, I can hide the bookshelf better from the entry area. And now we do the inside. Alright, so I added a second lever so we can close the door from the inside. And here we have our little lab. I'm using raw iron block to represent the poisoned gold, just because I think it looks a little like a dulled version. And then I was thinking about how peach pits can be bad for you, or poisonous, and I thought, what if on these cliffs there are some poisonous melon seeds? So if you grind those up with a potion of poison and slowness, which we have in these brewing stands, it will create a paste that seeps into the stone. And then I've got a few other details and materials in here, but with that, we're finished. We've got a secret lab in a hidden lab behind a waterfall. Not too bad. All right. Soon we'll be able to see the effects of this poisoning on the landscape, and we'll find out what Declan is going to do about it and who else will be coming along with him on this journey. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear which lagoon you'd like to explore and what secrets you'd think you'd find there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!